Hello and welcome to Beyond the Numbers. This afternoon, we break down the numbers behind President Mahama's decision to scrap the E-Levy and the betting tax.
Well, it's a major campaign promise that has been signed into law by the president. But when is the implementation actually starting?
We'll also track Mahama's 90-day timeline for scrapping these taxes. How soon would Ghanaians feel the impact?
Well, you have to stay with us for the facts and the figures right here on Beyond the Numbers. And as usual, we always start from the smart boy. Winston is smiling. E-Levy, I mean, we've all been waiting for the president to do the needful. He's actually signed the bill into law. But the key question we are asking this afternoon is, when is this new law going to take effect? And per what we understand, before we even came to the studio, we tried to speak to the Ghana Revenue Authority, and according to the intelligence we are gathering, per what they told us, according to them, they are waiting for this new law to arrive on their decks, for them to start studying the details of the law, the timelines in there, do some due diligence to see when implementation will take place. And of course, we heard from the Deputy Finance Minister, who said that the president really wanted to sign this bill into law before Friday. What he said last week has actually played out today, which means that the president has really kept to his words, and what the Deputy Finance Minister said was true, that the president knows that there will be holidays. I mean, the long weekend that you enjoyed, definitely that is over now. The president has signed the bill into law, but implementation is what we are waiting for currently, Winston.
This possibly is a good announcement for the betting community.
Oh, wow.
The key investors who find it potentially profitable to engage in the game of lottery, in the game of chance, if I should put it that way, because it appears it became a quite political conversation during the election until the finance minister came before Parliament and gave assurance that this will certainly happen. And he was questioned consistently whether this will have any ripple effect on the government's revenue target. And he said, nah, there are better avenues to
make alternatives.
Exactly, alternative. And if you look at the theories and the write-ups and the research and the analysis that have come forth afterwards, is that it will certainly have impact on our IMF conditionalities or potential, because it was one of the key conversations years back before we understood that it gave a potential for the government to look good before our investors. And government chose the option of increasing our revenue outlook, and that ripple effect is what we're feeling now. Many said it had up to the cost of living, because normal individuals who could send money to their families, their children in school, and when you can transact businesses, the E-Levy, if they look at the potential and they said they are sending 100 cedis and the E-Levy is possibly around 10 cedis, they will say, don't worry, I'll come to your office and take the money. So don't
go to the Momo Bank, I'll allow cash out. You
exactly.
All right.
So many found their ways to evade the E-Levy. Some even decided not to go potentially on the transfer of funds. Why we made this opportunity? Because if we look at our week coming out of the COVID-19 period, the lockdown, the potential for financial inclusivity was good. We built the trust in ensuring that the people come into the coverage, because sending money became easier. People had trust and understood the ease of doing business. But the E-Levy somehow brought those levels down, even though the numbers speaks otherwise in terms of the outcome and the profitability going forward. I
mean, you speak about projections, and we were trying to understand why during that difficult period in 2022, let's even start from 2021, the government saw the E-Levy, or a tax handle like electronic transaction levy, as the main way or the best way to save the economy. Because I'm sure they saw the data, and definitely they will. The evidence we are trying to get is that at a point, mobile money transactions and the country's GDP were moving in an asymptotic manner. Now what we are seeing is that mobile money transactions has now even crossed the country's GDP, which is now hovering around 1 trillion. The last time we did a computation, mobile money transactions is now in excess of, let's say, some 2.9 billion or trillion Ghana cedis, let me put it one way. So what you are saying is that this was a space that was looked at as a very lucrative space. But it wasn't only the most promising tax handle, because the first year government was expecting some 7 billion Ghana cedis from E-Levy. It was also the most controversial tax handle ever introduced under the Akufo-Addo administration, where people took to the street to campaign against it, but it still went ahead. And in fact, the irony around this whole thing is that in the 2024 manifestos of both the NPP and the NDC, we saw the E-Levy feature heavily, not just the E-Levy, but the betting tax as well, feature heavily in both the NDC and the NPP's manifesto, all saying that when we come to power, we will do what? We will scrap. But at the polls, this is the gentleman who got the buy-in of the people of Ghana,
yes,
who gave him his second chance. Now he is in office. And I want us to go to the smart wall and read aloud, verbatim, his 120-day social contract.
Yeah.
That 120-day social contract, there are subsets in there. And this afternoon, we are going to take a look at the 90-day subsets, where if you look at the 90-day subsets, where 0.5, it says that within my first 90 days in office, I will scrap the following draconian taxes to alleviate hardship and ease the high cost of doing business, just like you said,
yeah,
doing business and even living, the cost of living. E-Levy is number one. The COVID-19 levy, 10% levy on the betting winnings and emissions levy, right? This has been done in terms of the initiation. I mean, started from being in the manifesto, moving to the budget, Parliament, approved it. The president today, we understand, has assented to that bill. What is left now is the implementation. But I want to put the whole thing into proper perspective. The president says within 90 days, which means that the upper limit of this deadline or timeline is 90 days. Scrap. I mean, to the ordinary Ghanaian, if you say scrap, I'm not thinking about you going to Parliament and getting the law passed and I'm not seeing the effect. I want to see the effects. When I transfer money, when I transfer thousands of cities, I just want to see the service tax, but not the E-Levy and other things. If we do the math, 90 days, the president has done almost 85 days. He's left with just 5 days to go. Do you think that within these 5 days, he will be able to get the GRA, who are now saying that they are waiting for this law to come to their desk before they even start, considering, and not even, I don't want to use the word consider, but to study the law before they start the implementation? He has just 5 days.
When they implemented it, it was swift. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I mean, it was March,
yes,
yeah, then May before, yeah,
exactly.
The effective days was somewhere May.
And most of the calendar year, you get to realize that when a tax component is being introduced, they mostly commence in May. If you look at the years, every 1st of May, you see the letter being released by GRA. The 1st of May, this tax policy is going to take full effect. But the president can also be instructive in terms of what he wants to be done, because he can tell GRA, I want this to be done as soon as possible. All he has to do is a letter from GRA, pass through the system, and it goes into effect. Basically, I foresee we will certainly have in future another form of a tax component that will look like E-Levy, but not necessarily E-Levy, because we are looking at
the second coming of E-Levy, but
exactly
in a different way. Is that what you're saying?
Because if you look at the net of E-Levy, it captures both the untaxed population, it captures both the unbacked population, it captures almost every sector in our perspective. Businesses are also captured. And government should have used a very strategic approach in bringing the previous government should have used a very strategic approach in bringing the E-Levy into being, because we realized there was a lot of opposition against the policy. Why? Because there was not enough consultation with key stakeholders in the sector, because government was saying one thing, we needed this for IMF, we needed to look good, and it's something that they decided during the IMF committee meeting. However, the sector players saw it as a potential to their activities coming down. So many were saying government should have reduced it to 1.5%. Many were also pushing government should have brought it to 0.5%. However, it went. So government had considered it, this wouldn't have been a political conversation.
Yeah.
But if you look at how much you are paying just to transfer money you've worked for, many were saying it's basically robbing Ghanaians or taking money out of people's pockets for no service rendered.
I mean,
that was many of the that's one of the worst tax components ever, because the logic and the reasoning behind it, many did not comprehend. If you look at all our tax policy, they had objective, they have timeline, they have a target. But for the E-Levy, it was a good opportunity for both government, for both industry to have a tax component that would have been quite inclusive, so they have taken enough brought about all the players. Trust me, it would have been better for us.
I mean,
but now,
it's gone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But I mean, we are still waiting for it to actually feature. I mean, we want to feel the impact.
What I want to see off is the COVID-19 levy. That's what
we will talk about that. I mean, that looks like the most complex aspect, and it looks like the president will not be able to meet the COVID-19 aspect of the promise. We'll talk about that. But even though we make E-Levy look like a draconian tax, right? But I've always said that the only reason why we got our IMF program in that record time was because of such tax handles. Very promising. Because if you look at countries like Zambia and others who are IMF mates, Sri Lanka and co, it took them a certain amount of time before they got their IMF programs, especially when they had to do debt restructuring and all of that. But we had a tax handle around that time, I think was bringing in close to about $900 million, right? Or let's say roughly $500 million. Let's put it that way. $500 million around that time. Any investor that we went to the negotiation table to speak to with revenue handles or tax handles like the E-Levy and all of that, I'm sure they'll be looking at it and say that, oh, this is lucrative. So many have said that, I mean, E-Levy did its work. Its work was for us to get the IMF program, signed within that record time, get the debt restructuring through and all of that, close revenue gaps. But now we've been able to do that. We are still not out of the woods yet, but E-Levy should go. But the question is, my main question this afternoon is that the president promised in 90 days that the word scrap, I mean, anybody can interpret.
But the 90 days will not be a key challenge. He has 4 years to do what he has to do. And
but I mean, the ordinary Ghanaian is expecting
whether he couldn't do it within 90 days, he has 4 years. So if you go to the 90 days or 91 days, and possibly due to technical challenges, they couldn't have gotten the meet their deadline. 91 days, the tax has to...
I think this will be the best time to open the phone lines and hear from the ordinary Ghanaians if they will forgive the president. If within 90 days, I mean, it's gone through the budget, parliament, the president has assented to that bill, it's just left with implementation, right?
Absolutely.
So he said within 90 days, this will be scrapped. I don't know. I mean, the word scrapping here can be a little bit ambiguous, right? But after 90 days, if you see the law, I mean, if you see the impact in somewhere, let's say May or June, are you going to be, happy? Are you going to forgive the president and say that? You said 90 days, but I mean, we know there will be technical challenges in terms of the implementation and all of that. Let us hear from you as you call the number below. Let's hear from you. E-Levy has been assented, that bill has been assented to by the president. We are still waiting for the implementation. We all don't know when this will start. But the intelligence we are getting from the GRA is that they are still waiting for the law to move from the presidency to the Ghana Revenue Authority, their decks, for them to study the the law, and look at the details in that law and see how the implementation is going to pan out. So let's hear from you. The president said within 90 days it should be scrapped. I don't know. How are you expecting? Are you expecting everything to happen within 90 days, or you still think that the president deserves some sort of grace period in terms of the whole E-Levy package and some of the taxes. We'll come to the COVID-19 tax, but we want to hear from you again.
You know the interesting aspect, Kofi, with this happening, that means if you listen to the body language of the finance minister, Kesa Atuforsen, he kept mentioning compliance. He kept mentioning sealing the loopholes in some of the tax measures or tax handles that we already have. And one key potential that possibly did not see much implementation was the property rate tax. Yeah. So one thing, it has a huge potential, however, because of the landed property that are around the country, easy to locate, easy to identify, easy to tax, and the previous government did not do much in that angle. And if we are to look at the output of it, because it's easy to budget it on the long-term basis and then forecast how much you get from the property rate tax. I'm sure that and several other tax handles that are already in existence will see more concentration going forward.
Oh, that'll be interesting. But I think that the most important question on the mind of every Ghanaian is that we have heard the news. We have seen pictures of the president signing. But when I send the money, at what point will I see that, look, I am E-Levy free? Or will I have that digital freedom? That is the question.
Now you don't hear, hey, what's it me?
What's it?
What's it? When I hear that word again, hey, what's it me? Hey, a bumper, what's it me?
Yeah, you know, before we came to the studio, I was trying to send money to somebody, and then I was looking at the time, and in my head, I was like, oh, very soon, one layer will go. Yeah, I mean, the president has done his part. It's left with the implementation. But one other tax handle that looks a bit complex and complicated for the government is the COVID-19 levy. And why? Because it is in the soup of, the VAT tax. So before you can actually deal with the COVID-19 levy, you need to perform surgery on Ghana's VAT before you can take the COVID-19 aspect out. And that has been the most difficult aspect. And I don't think that in terms of the whole process and implementation, the government can do it within the 90 days that they promised. And if you read the body language of the finance minister when he was reading the budget, you could sense that the government will need more time to deal with the COVID-19 aspect. And if you are somebody, yes, we understand Salifu, our first caller from Takrade. Salifu, let's hear from you. Are you going to forgive the president if he is not able to do all of this in 90 days?
Good afternoon. First of all, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To you and your cherished viewers. I think for the benefit of the doubt, I know that by the 90 days, President Mahama will deliver because he is a president who is a talk and walk presidency. And we Ghanaians believe in him, that you instruct the GRA to make that possible. And even if he doesn't meet that 90 days, what we only want is for the E-Levy and then the betting tax to go.
You don't want the COVID-19 levy to go?
He has met his promise.
Salifu, you don't want the COVID-19 levy to go?
As for that one, I understand it is part of the VAT, and there is something to be done with it. So that one I understand, and we know that you also do something. The finance minister, the noble case Atuforsen will do something about it. But for now, we know that the betting tax and the E-Levy is done. It has gone through all the process. Because President has signed it, and since he has signed it, there is nothing more again. We are just waiting for the GRA to complete its work, so that everything will be good for Ghanaians.
Well,
so
like
one thing we will possibly see, the COVID levy, well, like we made mention, if you look at the various angles that they reflect, if you go and buy food in any restaurant, you pay COVID-19 levy. Import and exportation, if you look at our import bill, especially those who import cars and products from outside of the country into Ghana, the COVID-19 is everywhere. So it will definitely be very, very important that government try as much as possible to ensure the ease of doing business, the cost of doing business is handled, and that will really play a key role. I think we have Alex Tanda also calling us from Kanda. Alex, you're live on Beyond the Numbers.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear the abolition of these two taxes specifically. I'm talking about the betting tax and the E-Levy. I mean, if he's not able to meet the 90 days deadline, but we know for sure he has listened to us as Ghanaians, and then he is willing to scrap it. We are just hoping that GRA will not delay the processes in scrapping it. For now, we know the president has washed his hands off these two taxes. So we just hope GRA works quickly around the clock to get it out of their books so that, these little deductions they are making can come back to our pocket.
Oh. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Kofi, you know the interesting thing? Every government in the first year, they give us freebies. And the subsequent year, they give it to us hard.
Really?
Yes. Every government, remember when the previous government came to power, the same thing happened and abolished so-called nuisance taxes. And later on, we kept saying the introduction of key taxes that hits the life and the cost in the pocket.
E-Levy.
Exactly. We are hoping, due to the current trend globally, already China-US trade, many are fearing to not trickle down for us to have another so-called levy for US-China levy. We already had one that was necessitated. The E-Levy was necessitated because of the impact of Russia-Ukraine war. So let's pray that doesn't come. We have Anefi also joining us on the phone line. Anefi, you're live.
I want to say that I think the government have tried. Yeah, the government have tried his best. At least they have kept the promise that he gave to Ghanaians that he will scrap it. But for me, it would be good that he would turn it to maybe some fund, maybe emergency fund, something like that, so that you'll be paying that money into that fund. That taxes will be in that fund, so that in case of any emergency or any crisis, whatever, that money can be used for. Unlike like scrapping it away, but all the same, I think we thank the president for listening to us. And then again, I wanted to say something, but it's not part of this discussion. If I'll be permitted to do so.
If it is salient enough, you can. But if it's not something that will bring it to any other issue, just go ahead.
Okay.
And we also disassociate ourselves to be something that.
What I wanted to ask. What about the oral thing? Being about this Keta port, because we learned that there's some port being created at Keta.
Unfortunately, we can't answer questions on oral at the moment.
All right. Yeah.
Now we are
so there will be another platform for oral.
Yeah, absolutely. And Winston, you were actually talking about the COVID-19, and I'm saying that if you look at all of these taxes that the president has promised to let them go, not promise, has actually fulfilled that promise, right? In fact, what we can boldly say is that the first quarter of this year, which ended 2 days ago, the current administration actually collected revenues from COVID-19, collected revenue from betting tax, collected revenue from E-Levy. So in fact, although they've scrapped that tax,
there are numbers to speak for.
Yeah, they've used the first quarter to at least take in something small to cushion, one and year.
Let's go to who. We have George. George, you're live on Beyond the Numbers.
Okay, thank you to my call. I want to contribute. The government, you have to check the assessment the government gives to people this year. Just some taxes put for the assessment to some businessmen in the country. This time, the assessment is very, very, very high.
John, take your time and please let us hear what you had to say again. Please come again.
I say the government delete the E-Levy, making things, but the assessment they give to the contractors and then the businessmen, they is high this year.
I mean, he's a businessman. I think he's complaining about taxes, right?
Thank you very much, John. We'll get back to you on that as well. Yeah. think he has a legitimate response there. So already we've heard today the Ghana Statistical Service has announced a reduction in inflation rate.
Yeah.
We saw last week an upward adjustment in the policy rate. We'll surely bring viewers deep analysis on that subsequently because we made some projections to that effect.
Absolutely.
So this is a huge number you've seen behind us. The president has made his decision. Going forward, we want to see more analysis, especially from the presidency in terms of commitment. Many are waiting for the COVID-19 levy. But before we go, let's jump to Wale. Wale, we have Sani here on the line. Sani, you are our last caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to thank our president. In fact, he has shown that we have different levels of president in terms of, from fulfillment of campaign promises. And then, in fact, I would say he has even done about 99% of that particular, promise. So it is just left with the GRE, like we said. And I believe that by Friday, by close of this week, Friday, the GRE would have passed, done what is necessary for the bill to scrap. So let us be hopeful and then thank our president. He has done fantastic work, and it is going a long way to elevate the sufferings of the Ghanaians.
Okay, Sani, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your time, Sani, for calling into the show. Indeed,
it's very optimistic, you know.
Absolutely.
And in fact, the most important thing is that from what we've heard, almost everybody is happy that the president has actually fulfilled that promise, and people are really hopeful that at the implementation stage there will be no stumbling blocks and this will go through smoothly. Two down. It's just the only tax left is COVID-19, and we hope that GRA will give us feedback and we'll keep tabs on what is going on.
So expect us same time, 5:30 p.m. on Friday here on Joy News Channel. Thanks for watching. My name is Winston Taki, and I did do it with
Isaac Ofieje, just like he said, Friday, 5:30. See you soon.